Hello everyone, welcome back. And today I'm doing a video on leopard gecko care. So for all of you out there who have been thinking about getting a leopard gecko or want to start up in the reptile hobby and start with the leopard gecko, here's a quick video on everything that you need in order to keep them happy and healthy. So first off, you want to choose whether you're going to have one or more leopard geckos. Leopard geckos are awesome because you can keep them single or you can keep them in groups. You want to make sure though, if you're going to keep your leopard geckos in a group, to keep all females because they will not unexpectedly have babies on you, and males become very territorial and will fight with each other. So you really can only keep females together unless you're looking to breed, in which case do some research and be very prepared, because before you know it, you can be overrun with baby geckos. So with that in mind, the next thing you need is a tank. If you want to keep your geckos in a tank, you can keep them in a tank as a display, or you can keep them in a rack system. It doesn't matter. Leopard geckos are terrestrial, so they don't do a lot of climbing. Where they're from, they live out in like rocky deserts. So they're more subterranean and terrestrial animals, which means they stay on the ground or they go underground. So once you've chosen your leopard geckos, if you're going to keep one, you can even keep two in a small 10-gallon tank like this one. So this here is just a 10-gallon tank with a screen lid. And like I said, geckos, as far as leopard geckos go, they don't climb, they can't stick on the glass like a traditional gecko would, so you really don't even need this screen lid. I just use it in case, I have a lot of other reptiles in here, so God forbid, but if anything were to get loose, I don't want them tangling with my geckos. So namely one of the snakes one of my many snakes that I keep in here. So with that in mind, you don't need a lid, but if you want to go ahead and get one, like say if you have a cat in the house or whatnot, you definitely do want to have a secure screen lid. That way you don't end up with a gecko snack for your cat. So once you've had your tank, you need a heat source. Now geckos do not absorb heat not so much through sunlight like most reptiles do. Geckos absorb their heat from their belly. So what they'll normally do in the wild is wait, and once all the rocks or the ground around their cave has been well heated, they will go outside and they will actually press their bellies and all the bottom side of their body on the rocks to absorb the heat. Now, stay away from heat rocks. They do sell heat rocks at pretty much any pet store. You do not want to get a heat rock because those things commonly overheat. They're not controllable as far as the temperature, so you will get a fried gecko at one point or another. So you definitely want to stay away from heat rocks. You want to use an under tank heating pad, or a UTH, under tank heating pad. And all you need is a really small one. You can put it right under the tank and have a hot side and a cool side for your gecko. And that should be sufficient enough to go ahead and supply it all the heat that it needs. Now, most people will take the adhesive from their heat pad and then stick the pad under the tanks. I used to do that myself, but I actually do not do that anymore. I just leave that on there and I never take it, the little sticker part off. And that way you can just interchange it, use it on different tanks, or do what you need to do with it. And if you just put it under the tank, because heat pads commonly get up to like 100, maybe 110 degrees, you don't really need to stick it up onto the glass, just because then that will create a major hot spot for your gecko, and they typically like it around 90 or so. So if you just put it right under the tank, sitting on something like your shelf or whatever you keep it on, and not actually stuck to the glass, that should do more than enough to heat that area and probably bring it about 85 to 95 degrees, somewhere in between there. Right now, my female's basking spot here is at about 91. So, and that's without the under tank heater being stuck to the glass. It's just sitting down under the tank. And then also keep in mind when you do this, you do want to give your heater a breathing space. So for example, if I go around this shelf here and you see her tank is actually sticking out a little bit off of this shelf, and that is to just give some ventilation to the heating pad under there. So if you see this gap here, that's just so that excess heat can escape right here. So that allows the heating pad to breathe and allow excess heat to escape. That way it just doesn't boil over under there, and then it just gets it really, really hot for your gecko. You want to make sure they're comfortable. And the other thing you need is a hide. Now these hides here, they sell at virtually any major pet retailer. Even your local pet shops carry them. Of course, as anybody knows, if you're in the pet trade or if you're starting to get into it, the major retailers will typically have things a little bit cheaper than most local pet shops. But keep in mind, if you shop at a local pet shop, like I've mentioned in many other videos, you know, you're supporting local business and you're supporting other pet enthusiasts just like yourself. So with the major retailers, it's sad to say, but many a person that works there really doesn't know too much about the animals that they work with. So, you know, it's great to save a few bucks, but if you really want to support the community, I myself like to go to local pet shops. So, moving forward with that, you just get your little hide, and these hides are cool. They're like these little castle hides, and what they do is they give the gecko a little rock cave. Now you can use the Heidi logs, the Flukers logs, the half logs that are cut. Typically though, you want to try to go with more rocky things, because where these guys come from, they really only touch sand and rocks. So they're not really in a wooded area, not too many trees or whatnot around that. But again, I mean, you know, you can go ahead and choose a Heidi log, no big deal. But the reason I really like this is because it combines the cave along with its water source. So as you can see, this is the water right there. And it's really awesome because it's a dual feature little accessory for your gecko. And it actually helps you save some floor space for your gecko. So with that, you also want to have a humid hide in your gecko's tank. Humid hides are basically, you can make them out of a deli cup, you can make them out of, you know, a large deli cup container like this one. This thing I forgot what I bought out of a reptile expo in that thing, but then I just ended up cutting the hole there, put some tape around it just to give the gecko a little bit of privacy because it's completely see-through. So they do like to go in there and hide, and I did that for their privacy, got some holes going on the side for ventilation, and then the entry and exit hole up at the top. Now, when you make your humid hides, keep in mind that geckos, especially females, love to dig. And whether they go grab it and you're breeding, or whether they're just going through their regular female cycles, they will go in there and they will dig. So you want to make your entry and exit hole at the top of the humid hide so that you don't lose any substrate, because they get very messy. And for example, let me show you one of my holdback males here. You see that? That's what happens when you make your entry and exit hole at the side rather than on the top. That's my bungle. I won't be doing that again, and I should have known better, but that's what you get if you don't make your entry hole on the top. You get bunches of dirt everywhere, and it's really annoying because every time you put it back, you can come back the next day and guaranteed he will have thrown everything right back out. Yes, even the males do it. So you want to make your entry and exit hole at the top, that way you don't have substrate littered all over through your tank. Now, the second thing that I do, or not second thing, I'm sorry, this is one of the many things. You want to have your feeding dish here for your mealworms. Now, you can feed a gecko a wide variety of different insects. They are insectivorous, so they eat only insects. You can feed them crickets, you can feed them roaches, you can feed them mealworms. I personally like to go with the main staple that most people use, which is mealworms. And always remember, guys, whatever insect you choose to use, please gut load your insects. A lot of these major retailers will sell you, mealworms in one of these little cans here, and you keep them in your refrigerator. That's not really doing any good for your gecko. You're kind of just basically giving them boring, bland food. Just for the simple fact that the worms being in the fridge, they don't pupate as fast, so they last a little bit longer, but they're very inactive, they don't eat, and thus you have a pretty much malnutritioned worm. And remember, your gecko is what it eats, so if it's eating nothing but malnutritioned worms, in the end, you're not going to have a very big fat gecko like you see on many a video. So if you guys want a nice, happy, healthy gecko, I do suggest you gut load your worms or any other insect that you use. It's actually very easy. If you take an old sock and a hammer, and you also get some high protein or holistic dog food, you just put a good handful of that inside of a sock, smash it with the hammer outside, and that will grind it to a powder. And then when you set up your mealworms in some oatmeal, you go ahead and just sprinkle the powder in there all over, and you can't see it anymore because it's already in there, but they just munch that stuff down so fast. And then of course you want to have a carrot for some water. I find carrots are the least fat. I guess they don't mold as fast as other things, so they're awesome because they provide extra nutrition, and they also provide the water source for your worms. And with that, make sure you leave them in there for a good 12 to 24 hours before feeding. That way they're fully gut loaded and your gecko is getting awesome amounts of nutrition. Since I've started doing that, my female has literally gained more than 15 grams, and she wasn't even supposed to be growing anymore. So she's actually getting much, much fatter, and it's awesome. So we've got the humid hide down, your hot hide, your water dish, your feeding dish. Now, the one thing I like about mealworms is that you can put them in these little ceramic crock feeding dishes, and they really don't get out. They can't grasp onto anything on there. They don't stick, so they stay in there, and it's always a ready meal waiting for your gecko whenever they feel like eating. Now, if you see that little pill bottle capsule in the back, you can use those also for feeding dishes, although mealworms can get on the ridges and get out. So the main reason why you want to have a feeding dish is because you don't want your mealworms running around the cage, and if there's poop in there, they will begin to eat the leopard gecko poop. Keep in mind, folks, all leopard geckos do have some form of parasite in them. If your food item is munching on the leopard gecko poop, it is in turn intaking those parasites, which then they can begin their life cycle inside of the insect. Once your gecko finds that insect and eats it, it's now eating a parasite-loaded insect, which will then in turn affect your gecko in a real nasty way, and they will become very, very sick and parasite infected themselves. So you want to keep the food items away from gecko poop. That's why, that's one of the other reasons why I like to use mealworms, because they stay in there, they don't get out, and they do not eat the poop, and thus get your gecko sick. So crickets, on the other hand, you can't really keep them in anything. They run around everywhere, and they will eat virtually anything they can find. So if they find that poop, they will eat it, and you have that cycle going on over and over again. So that is one of the main reasons why I like to use mealworms. Now for a treat, guys, remember, waxworms are also widely available. Do not, I repeat, do not use a waxworm as your staple food. Your gecko will love waxworms. They will go crazy for them. But please, guys, I've heard of others. I've had clients who have used waxworms, and it really angers me because then they call me asking me, why is the gecko sick? Why is it not eating? Why is it getting so skinny? Well, if you would have been feeding it the proper food source instead of just candy, which is virtually what a waxworm is for a leopard gecko, it would have been okay to begin with. So it's really sad when you sell a 30-gram baby to somebody, and then a month later they tell you he's down to like 10 to 15 grams. It's truly disgusting and angering, and it frustrates me very, very much. So guys, please do not use waxworms as a staple. Offer waxworms maybe once every 2 weeks, if that. And that is only as a treat, as geckos will go crazy for them. But they are not nutritious. They are only packed with a lot of fat. They do not carry enough nutrition to sustain your gecko, and I can't stress that enough. So please stick to roaches, stick to crickets, but preferentially, I say stick to mealworms. They are the best. And that little second dish you see back there, I do use the pill cap bottle for calcium. So, you know, there's a lot of controversy with the calcium going on now as far as the D3 and whether it works, whether it doesn't. It's, I guess, a popular thing now that the D3 is no good and it really doesn't help. But you know what? I've been using it for years with my geckos and it's working excellently. I don't have any problems with metabolic bone disease. I don't have any weakening females. And I've never had a female die because of breeding, you know, and not being able to produce healthy eggs. So if anything, they constantly, especially my females, the males do this too, but the females will go over to the dish and they literally just lick that stuff up as if it's water when they need it. So the geckos do know what that stuff is. That's why I like to keep it separate. This stuff here isn't calcium. That's actually a little bit of ReptiBoost powder that I put in there because at one point she was just a little worn down from breeding. And I had to get her going again. So, but I found that the worms actually eat that stuff up too. So I figure if they eat it, she ingests it, it'll just make her hungrier. And I mean, she's gotten much bigger. So I know that worked. But yeah. Let me just show you guys my female here real quick. As you've seen her before. That's Fiona. So she is a Tremper albino het for supergiant. And she is awesome. So she's my main female here. I know you guys have seen a second female in my videos. That is Maleficent. Unfortunately, Maleficent, my blizzard female, has passed away. I'm not sure what exactly happened. That's the other reason why I put the ReptiBoost in there. She wasn't really bred as much as Fiona. She was actually bred less, and for some reason she just stopped eating. I think, and her actually I rescued off another person who didn't want her. One of the many fabled Craigslist, I can't keep it anymore type of people. So I guess they just got to be too much for them, or she was getting old already. Not sure what the case was. But in any event, her health declined. I tried the ReptiBoost there, gave her ReptiBoost supplements, didn't work. So, unfortunately, Maleficent is now gone. But her son, which is my little male up here that was a holdback, lives on to carry her legacy. So, you guys have seen this guy before. This is Rex. He is an awesome little gecko. And as you can see, he's nice in lavender and yellow. Because his dad is also a Tremper albino het for supergiant. This guy was hatched out on June 9th. And he is, how old now? That's like 3 months. And he's already about 35 grams. So I'm thinking that little guy is going to turn out to be one of my giants as well. Hoping so. But we'll keep you updated on that. So with that, guys, you got your feeding dish, your hide, your water, your calcium dish, your humid hide, and for substrate. You've seen a lot of people, I'm sure, use this stuff up here. And this is Repti carpet. Now, this you can buy at any pet store, and it's awesome because it's reusable. So you can wash it and then put it back in there once it's dry, or just let it in there to dry out itself. And it's really cool because you can reuse it, but it's pretty expensive, and it does really start to stink after a while, especially with the leopard gecko pee. Once it concentrates in one area, and it will, because geckos do like to use only one area of their tank to poop and pee in, that little corner of the carpet will just start to stink, and there's really nothing you can do to get it out. So with that in mind, the other thing I want to give you guys here is the napkins. I like to use napkins just because every time you clean out the tank, you put napkins in, it's nice and fresh, there's no odor left over, and there's no odor left over on the substrate. I've seen people start to use shavings or different things. Now keep in mind, folks, it's not recommended that you use any kind of loose substrate on the floor of your leopard gecko tank. I know a lot of people do it. A lot of people say, oh, well, my gecko doesn't ingest anything, but I mean, the reality is that geckos like to taste things with their tongues. They really, for some reason, go everywhere and just lick stuff. Now, if that little sticky tongue licks up some aspen shavings or, shredded aspen, whatever it is, walnut shells, corn cobs, I've seen people using that. I really do not recommend that. I myself think it's just horrible to do that, for the simple fact that if your gecko ingests too much of that, it is going to get impacted because that stuff is not made for them to eat. And if you guys know what impaction is, that's basically a blockage in their intestinal system. They will not be able to use the bathroom. Then they will rapidly die, and they're not going to die a pretty death. It's going to be very, very bad for your gecko. It's going to be a horrible death. So, guys, just please stick to the Repti carpet or napkins. That is your best bet. Now keep in mind, for juveniles, you do not want to use Repti carpet because their toes can get stuck in it very easily. And when they try to free themselves, you can end up with many broken legs, missing toes, or even a missing leg. So you guys do not want to use this Repti carpet on your gecko until it's at least a subadult, or I'd say about 8 months old or older. So with that, stick to napkins. It doesn't stick to their claws as much, and it will keep them safe. Not only that, it's very, very clean, and it works just fine. So now you guys know pretty much everything that you need to take care of your leopard gecko. I hope this has been a great help for any of you out there who are looking to acquire one, or just got one and are kind of wondering what to do. That is pretty much all you need. Now, you can see that I have all these little decorations and things bought from pet stores, but geckos are so easy. I mean, you can just jimmy rig about anything, as you can see that over there. That's my male Shrek. He is my Tremper albino giant, het for super giant. So these guys actually have smaller little hides, but I mean, you can see it's just another deli cup. And that one is a mealworm cup. I mean, it's very easy. Oh, the substrate you want to use for your humid hide. I use Beta Beast. So it's those little blocks that you can get for like $3 or $4 at virtually any pet store as well. Throw it in a bucket of water, and within about half an hour you have fresh, clean, sterile soil. So you can buy that, or you can buy it already made and ready to go in a bag. They don't give you as much, but it is a little more expensive. It's about $8 or $9 for a small little bag of it, but you don't need much. You put it in there, spray it down, mist it really, really good so that it's nice and damp, and that way it keeps the humidity inside, and your gecko can go in there to shed. That is one of the main reasons why you use the humid hide. I know I left that out, but the humid hide is for your gecko's shedding. So they do need help when they shed. Since they don't like a humid climate, you need to give them a humid hide, so that way when they're ready to shed and take that skin off, they can just go in there, and the moisture really helps separate their old skin from their new skin. And with leopard geckos as well, don't trip out if you don't find skin afterwards. They eat their shedding, so you won't find a bunch of shed skin everywhere like you would with, per se, a snake. So with that in mind, guys, that's pretty much everything that you need to do to keep a leopard gecko happy and healthy. If you have any questions, any concerns, you need any tips, please feel free to give me a comment. You can comment right down below. And remember, guys, if you enjoy my videos, please hit that subscribe button. It's either up here or up there, one of those two. And also, those little thumbs right there. Do us a favor and please rate them. rate the video if you like it. It just takes one click. You know, you already watched the video, so help us out and give us some ratings. Really appreciate it, guys. Remember, any other animal channels out there, you guys sub us, we will sub you. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for the views, and we will see you guys soon. Bye-bye.